Well, good afternoon and welcome back to another live iThemes training webinar. My name is Nathan Ingram. I'm the host here at iThemes Training, and we are joined today by Rebecca Gill. Rebecca is one of the leading search engine optimization specialists that you'll find for WordPress, and she just took a position as Vice President of Digital Marketing Services at Imagine. And Rebecca is going to be talking to us today all about using website personas as you are strategizing for SEO in your website. Rebecca has a free Facebook group called SEO Launchpad. I'm going to drop that in the chat here in just a moment. If you have not joined that, I would highly recommend that you do. And she also has DIY SEO courses, and I'll drop that in the chat as well. So, hey, Rebecca, we're really glad you're back with us today. Welcome back to iThemes Training.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad and happy that I get to talk about website personas and bring a little poo into everyone's life.
It's going to be a lot of fun today. Again, if you're just joining us and GoToWebinar, lots of folks have just jumped in there. Make sure you head over to the chat room at ithemes.com/chat. That's the best place to get your questions answered, and I'll be saving your questions as Rebecca is presenting today, and we'll have a good round of Q&A as we're wrapping things up today. So make sure you're asking your questions there at ithemes.com/chat. It's always helpful if you preface your question with the word question and all uppercase. That makes sure that I will see it. So I think that's it. I'll drop those links in just a moment. Rebecca, let's talk about website personas.
Okay, so the reason I wanted to do this webinar is because a lot of people do not use website personas, don't fully understand website personas, and definitely don't know how to map those to keywords. So this is just a kind of a great learning lesson and something that really most everybody on here should be able to apply to their activity in one shape or another. I'm using Winnie the Pooh and his gang as examples because a lot of people are familiar with them, and providing that type of kind of simplistic example set will help you better understand personas and what we do with them. And it just kind of makes the whole thing fun. So with that, let's get moving ahead. What are we going to cover today? Well, we're going to first cover the what and why of personas. What are they? Why do you want to use them? And how can they help you? Next, we're going to look at example personas using Winnie the Pooh and his friends. And then we're going to move on to keyword research and what we would do with these personas once we've actually created them. All right, so successful websites, and particularly website design, isn't just about colors and fonts and content. I know it's what people focus on, but that's not the end all. Good design is about asking the right questions and making sure those questions apply to your website visitors. And I always feel like people miss this. And I always, I want to bring it back home to this, not just from the user experience, but also because from an SEO standpoint, usability and happy visitors are extremely important to the search engines, which in turn help your SEO. So what is good design? It's about finding solutions to your website's visitors' problems and creating a map for the journey so that your website visitor has a clear path to follow when they come to your website or blog. They know how to navigate and they know how to find content that is designed for them, around them, and that will help them. Successful website design isn't about you. It's about focusing on your visitors and how you can actually help your website visitors locate the right information, and you can encourage them with this information to take action, whether it be a subscription or to subscribe to your blog, or to reach out with a lead form, or to make a purchase. Doesn't matter what your end goal is, you can still use this process within that. So why are the website personas so important? Well, different groups of people have different problems. And because they have different problems, they're going to have different needs. And when you have different needs, you have different answers and solutions for those. And when you look at those varied answers, it becomes kind of cobbled and convoluted, and we want to make sure that we're going to review these different people, review their answers or potential answers, divvy them up into groups, segment them, and then utilize them in search so we can really make sure that our keyword research and our strategy is going to align with them. When you're viewing those different groups and you're creating different seed lists or segments of your seed list for them, you expand your keyword universe and you're looking at opportunities in search that you wouldn't even have realized existed. And that's pretty important. So when you start to ask questions, and you've heard me say some of these before, what are those questions? I always like people to describe first who they are. What do you do? Who do, how do you help people? And maybe like, who's a potential client or a potential visitor to your site? How do you help them? What is the products and services that you offer that are going to help provide assistance to the people that visit your blog or your website? And what are your differentiators? What sets you apart from the competition? Knowing answers to these questions and digging even deeper into questions is going to help you make sure that you're on track with keyword research and in turn bringing in the right traffic. So when we start to ask about who it is that you serve, start thinking about them in potential buckets or boxes or however you want to describe it. Are they men or women? Are they kids, teens, adults, or baby boomers? Are they consumers or businesses? Are they different types of companies or sizes of companies, like enterprise level companies or small businesses, or maybe an entrepreneur or a solopreneur? Are they tech savvy? Do they have an industry-based topic? In some areas, industries can be very strong personas and will lead you down a very specific path for keyword research. Do they belong to certain departments within an organization, like the IT department or accounting or manufacturing? Because all of these departments will have different needs and therefore different search inquiries that they'll place into search engines. Are they in different positions? Entry-level manager, C-level executives, these different people will have different search patterns as well. And that's because they're going to view their needs differently and they're going to have different terminology to describe their needs. Do they speak different languages or come from different regions? We know dialect and language can play a large influence for search and the search terms that are used. And then do they have different budgets or desired price points for your goods and services? Based on what you might be selling, this could have a huge impact on, again, the way people are searching and the way they're viewing the content that you have available. So when we move to defining your personas, let's just talk about this just a little bit. So a B2C company, so business to consumer, will have personas that might include characteristics like gender, age, education, or geography. But a business to business company might have personas that are more like industry or management level or organizational department. Regardless of whether it's a B2B or it's a B2C type of environment, you're still going to have segmentation and you're still going to want to make sure that you are grouping up your personas so that you can best understand the needs of each persona and speak in their language. And it's that last part that's really important to SEO. We need to make sure that the things that we are doing speaking exactly in the verbiage that your visitor would expect, want, and need. You can still have your verbiage included, but we need to make sure that we bring people in with their verbiage and we bridge the gap between the two. So do you have personas? Think about your website or maybe that of your clients. Which of these, or if any of these, might apply? If you have some personas, throw them in the chat box so the others on our webinar can kind of hear what your thoughts are and maybe provide some feedback.
Yeah.
All right. So as you go,
I was going to say, we had a lot of folks that have come in after the webinar. Again, the chat room is at ithings.com/chat. So if you have some personas, a girl again type is saying women 35 to 55. Perfect. If you have some personas like that, drop them there in the chat.
Excellent. Okay, so I see one persona that's listed is women 35 to 55. So I fall within that group, and I will tell you, I look at search and the world completely different than my 18-year-old daughter. We have different terms, and we've had things like down to what you would call a sweater. We've had arguments over this or disagreements over it because her generation calls it something completely different than my generation does. Knowing this, if that's what you're selling, is super important, especially if you go to describe or title things that are on your website or your store. Okay, so when we go to document personas, I don't want to know about their car that they drive or how many kids that they have, unless that's very closely tied to what they are going to need or purchase from you. The things that I do care about is what name would you give them? It can be a person name, it can be a group name, it can be really any name that you want it to be, as long as you know what it means. Give them a description. Describe in writing what they are so you have something in front of you. Document what drives them. What are their goals and objectives? Document their frustrations, their challenges and pain points. That one's super important, as well as their needs. So you might know what they struggle with, and what did that struggle equate to when you look at the needs? What are they looking for? An easy example of this is I am a very, very busy mother. I absolutely positively hate cooking dinner on weeknights because I just don't have time for it. It's the last thing I think of it as that comes around. What are my pain points? Well, evening dinners on weeknights. What are my needs? I need recipes that are very easy, that I don't need a bazillion recipe ingredients for, and that doesn't take a long time to cook and to prepare a meal for my family. My goal is to produce healthy meals for my son, so that he thinks that his mom loves him and takes care of him, and I give him good fuel so that he can go to his cross-country meet on Saturday. It's a very simplistic example, but it works the same way, whether I'm describing myself as the mom with some more simplistic needs, or I'm describing a persona that may make a $100,000 purchase, such as like a website or a software package, and they're looking at the drivers and the goals and the frustrations at the organization level. You would go through the same type of process. It's going to scale differently, but still super important regardless of your persona. The next one is, what's the decision process and the criteria? Again, going to change based on what you do, what you offer, and who you're talking to. If I'm a single mom and I don't have a lot of money, price point is going to be a big decision criteria for me. If I'm me and that's not so much of a concern, but my bigger concern is time becomes a decision criteria for me. And again, you need to think through these things as you're planning what you are going to do online, and you're going to work towards that inbound marketing. Okay, next one is purchase obstacles. Are there any that you need to be aware of? And if that's the case, what can we do to help mitigate those? That can be done with inbound activity, keywords, and content. And then the final one is, how do you reach them? How do you get to them? Is it email marketing, LinkedIn, Facebook? Maybe you're showing up at a trade show. I don't know what it is. There's so many different marketing channels, but understanding that will help you understand your personas better and target them. Asking those questions are so important. I've said this many times before on different webinars. Again, it's who do you help? What are their individual requirements? What problems do they have? How can you help them? What do you have to offer them to create solutions for them? And then the last one, does your content help answer any of those questions? And a lot of times that's where everything falls down, because we just haven't thought of our content in this manner before, but we need to. Okay, so just a few more quick examples. I'm an app provider, which I've had as clients before for SEO. Who am I targeting? Moms, kids, dads, all going to have different needs, right? Mom might want to monitor her kids' activity online. A teen's going to look for a cool app that maybe is going to help prevent their parents from monitoring them. And the dad's just going to look for something that makes everybody happy because he tries to be the keeper of peace in the family. Or what about shoes, right? 10-year-old boy, he's going to look for cool sneakers. That's exactly what my son would look for. My daughter would look for something like Kim Kardashian shoes or trendy shoes in 2018. Me, I don't care about any of that. I just want comfortable shoes because I'm going to have to go from work to a football practice to maybe like a brownie, meeting. And then my husband, he's just going to look for size 13 extra wide shoes because no one ever carries them in stock in person, and he has to order everything online. All of us have different needs, and you probably have a store that caters to all of them, but it's a matter of making sure that you set up and architectured your website or your store with the right keyword phrases so that you can find us and bring us in. Or I guess we could find you. So when you're doing your personas, I like to kind of start to create grids and spreadsheets and things like that because it helps me keep data straight. And this can be as simple as having 3 rows with a couple of columns, one for each persona. And then in just each row, just document those goals and those challenges and those needs. And there's a reason why we're doing this, because we're going to use this to drive our keyword research. When you continue with that mapping process, just continue to fill in those blanks that we talked about earlier. What products or services would this persona purchase? What words or phrases might this specific persona use to describe those products or services? That will vary by persona and by product or service. So this step, don't skip it because it can be very, very important. All right, so let's explore some fictional characters, which is Winnie the Pooh and his friends, to kind of bring all of that together. Because it's one thing for me to ramble about all of it. It's another thing for me to actually show you examples. So hopefully everyone on here is familiar with Winnie the Pooh. I think Ted said he was not, which Ted, you need to go Google it afterwards and watch a video, even if it's for just 5 minutes, so you understand the weirdness of which I reference. So Winnie the Pooh, you would think that he's just pretty normal, right? Well, let's dig into him a little bit and you'll find out he's not so normal. He likes his pals in the 100-acre woods, and he's always wanting to help people. He's just always willing to jump in and help. He also loves honey. What are his goals? Well, he wants to maximize his honey collection because that's all he ever thinks and talks about. Sleeping is important to him, and spending time again with his friends because his friends are super important to him. What kind of frustrations does he have? Well, controlling his impulsiveness, because he tends to get his head stuck in honey pots and bees chasing him at all, times in the storylines. Weight gain, if you have ever looked at his belly, that's a problem, as is binge eating, because he can't just eat a little bit of honey, he eats the entire pot of honey. And then, so what are his needs? Well, he needs to stay on task. He needs to not get caught, and he needs to not stick his head up in a honey pot or in a beehive. And he's always looking for a source or a place where he can replenish his honey. What about Tigger? People love Tigger. He's always everybody's favorite. But have you thought about Tigger and all of his weirdness? Tigger is energetic. He's the creator of mishaps. He's always causing problems, even though he doesn't even try to cause problems half the time. He loves being around others and being social and just, bouncing around and eating ice cream and teasing Rabbit. But guess what? One of his goals is tracking Baxen. I didn't even remember that from the series, but yes, that is one of his goals in life, is to eat lots of ice cream sundaes and track those Baxens. What are his frustrations? Well, which is weird, he's got a phobia of heights, even though he bounces all the time. And he really does not like bass, and unlike Pooh, he doesn't like honey. So what are his needs? Well, again, impulse control, just like Pooh a little bit. He needs some Baxen tips. If he's hunting them, he needs to figure out how, and some tips and tricks would help him do that. Then he probably should cure his height phobia, because that's just something, that he needs to get over, considering he's bouncing all around. And what about little Piglet? Little shy Piglet. He's shy, he's a bit cowardly, and yet he's still very helpful and heroic. He struggles with anxiety. Piglet struggles a lot with anxiety. What are his goals? He always wants to become brave. He wants to be braver than what he is. He wants to spend time with his friends, and he wants to be helpful. He doesn't think he can be helpful because he's just a little guy, but really he can. What kind of frustrations and challenges does he have? Well, he doesn't like danger. He doesn't like the dark. He's not a fan of being small, and he definitely doesn't like woozles. Woozles are bad. So what are his needs? Confidence, right? I said that he, struggles with anxiety. He thinks he's small. So he really does need some confidence. He needs some confidence boosting. And he needs a woozle defense, because he's afraid of woozles. And I should have probably said that he needs a nightlight too, because that would help with the fear of the dark. Oh, and here's Rabbit. This is me. So when you look at Rabbit, think of me. This is me. He's a bit compulsive. He's a bit bossy. Yep, that would be me. He also gets irritable quickly. That would be me at times too. If you put the toilet paper on the roll wrong, I get very irritable about that for some unknown reason. What are his goals? Staying organized. Definitely me. Growing his garden. Okay, I don't have that talent, so we would mark that one off. And keeping his house clean. Yes, Rabbit and I are both OCD, so we have to have a clean house that is well organized. What frustrations would he have? Tigger bouncing through his garden is a major one. His friends coming into his home and being messy, and just plain old bugs. And I can concur, Rabbit, those are annoying things. What else does he need? Well, he needs garden tips because that's really important for his garden to grow. Keeping Tigger out of his garden, that would be one. So tips on doing that, maybe some good products or tools to help assist with that. And then avoiding bugs. So whatever could assist in keeping bugs out of his hair, out of his house. And he probably needs some good cleaning products to keep his house clean and tidy. I forgot that one. But those are his needs. And now think about that. Everybody had different personalities, even though they're just fictional characters and cartoons. Everybody had their own needs. They had their own goals. They had their own struggles, right? They all had things that they were kind of just, goofy about. And as do all humans, because humans are by nature, we're messy things. And now let's look at that overview spreadsheet that I gave you before. And again, this is just to give you an idea of how this would work and how you could apply this to your own website personas or that of your clients. So let's look at Pooh. Pooh's goals, again, honey, sleeping, friends. Challenges, limited honey, impulse control, binge eating, weight gain. What are his needs? Well, an ADHD therapist possibly, weight loss, and a good honey source. And we can move that right across and all the things that we were talking about before with Tigger and Piglet and Rabbit. And we're just taking those one sheets of each character and we're applying this over to a matrix, right? So you can kind of start to see things as a whole. You might be thinking to yourself, wow, this is a lot of work and do I really need to do this? Why can't I just, start whipping down some keywords? Well, you could. However, this helps keep you on track and it's going to help significantly when you start to look at all of these phrases and apply those to your website because you want to make sure that your website is calling out those individual personas and it's serving them with their needs. All right, so what would be possible keywords by persona? Keep in mind, we're still looking at the same information that we were before, and we're still looking at the data that we were doing with those individual breakdowns of each one. So Pooh, his keywords might be local honey, buy honey online, where to buy raw honey, honey products, eating disorders, binge eating help, compulsive eating, bulimia, ADD versus ADHD, and ADHD therapist. And he might be like most of us humans and want to try to self-diagnose himself off of what he finds on WebMD. And he might want to know if honey causes ADHD, because we know that we all kind of do that at one point or another in our lives. And the same goes for the rest of the characters, right? So let's take Rabbit, who's me. Home organization ideas, products, tips, all things that he would be interested in. Gardening as well, vegetable garden planner, garden defense owl, right? Because he's trying to keep Tigger out. I know that there's storylines where Rabbit builds scarecrows to try to keep Tigger out, and it doesn't really work half the time. He might be looking at things associated with OCD, causes, symptoms, treatment, therapist, right? All of these things kind of go into that discovery process, and what I like to refer to when you're talking about mental health or just healthcare in general, the patient journey. Piglet is concerned about woozles. And I know I saw in the chat room that people have asked, what is a backsun and what is a woozle? I honestly do not know. I just was doing a little bit of research when I was creating this presentation to see things, to try to refresh my memory on things that I may have forgotten from my own childhood, and backsun and woozles came up. So I don't know what they are. But woozle defense, how to hide from woozles, woozle weapons, right? And remember that Piglet has issues with self-confidence and self-esteem, and he wants to be brave, and he's got anxiety. So he's going to start looking for things like similar to the OCD, anxiety treatment, a specialist or therapist who really, cater to patients with anxiety. Again, all of these things come into potential keyword phrases that would help find these patients or these characters, bring them into the website, and deliver them information that is tailored specifically to them. All right, so let's find even more options in KWFinder. I'm going to go back real quick just to find, all right, we'll do OCD because that's me, and I'm completely okay with poking fun of myself. Okay, so if y'all have not used KWFinder before, it is definitely one of my, well, it is absolutely my favorite keyword research tool. And I'm going to make this bigger so everybody can see it. In fact, when I took my new position at Imagine, it was one thing that I wanted my team to start being able to use right away, because I know I find it so useful, and I want them to find it useful as well and discover all of the goodness that it has to offer. So I'm just going to type in OCD. And there's the good old-fashioned WebMD that I mentioned earlier. So when I type in one phrase, right, or one word, KWFinder is going to give me lots and lots of options. And I can sort this by volume, so I see the highest volume first. I can sort it by pay per click, competition, or cost per click. I really don't care in this situation because we're talking about SEO, about pay per click competition. But if I was in a pay per click environment, that would be important to me. I can see lots and lots of related words. Well, something that was recently brought up was that fact that I think it's 40 or 50% of searches each day now are at least 4 words or more. So let's come up here and we're going to filter our results. And I'm going to tell KWFinder, I would like my minimum keyword phrase to be 4. And I set that filter, and now it changes the results for me, and I start to see all different types of phrases, but now they're longer tail, and you're going to see the search change accordingly. But that's okay, because when you start to get to these longer tail keyword phrases, you are narrowing in specifically to your personas and what they are going to be searching for. Notice the questions that start to pop up: why and what. That is the nature of search. How, why, what, how, what again. People are searching more and more with long tail and more with questions, and it's because Google can provide really good responses to that. Google can digest all of that information, and it gives us much better information than it would have years ago. Maybe I want to filter this even further. I'm going to come back up here and go back to my results. I'm going to get rid of the number of words, and instead I'm going to say I'd like to see something with a minimum of 1,000 searches per month. And then I set that search, and it starts to give me great information. Now I get to be a little bit more broad, and maybe I'm like, oh, that wasn't really great, so let's go back. I'm going to get rid of that. But you know what? I just kind of realized that maybe I'm not, my target market isn't all over the world. My target market is only in the state of Texas. So what does Texas search for? Because guess what? People in the state of Texas might search for things differently than people in the state of Michigan. And maybe not so much with this phrase, but it could be with other phrases. And you'll see the search volumes change, and you're going to see the search terms change. Based on what you're inquiring about, you will see different results. Now, let's look for honey. And again, I'm just looking at honey and the state of Texas. And now I'm going to be like, well, we're going to get rid of the state of Texas. Let me reset that. Anywhere, but I would like it to go back to 3 words or more. And now, well, good heavens, that didn't quite do what I wanted now, did it? Okay, now it did it. Now I see 3 words or more. Best raw honey, buy honey online. Well, those would apply to Winnie the Pooh, wouldn't it? It's assuming he's got a computer. Where to buy local honey. That would definitely apply to Pooh. Now say I want to like start selecting some of these. I can actually, with KWFinder, go up and build a list. And so I can say add to list. And I'm going to create a list just for Winnie the Pooh. And I can literally continue to do multiple searches and keep adding them into this list, and the list will just collect these for me. And then when I'm all done, I can export all of these to Excel. So, and this is just kind of to show you that this is a very powerful tool, especially when you are doing like persona-based searches. Let's assume I'm going to look for, we'll look at Tigger and his fear of heights. Now, one thing to think about is that is the technical term for fear of heights. Would Tigger think of that as he's starting out with his patient journey? No, because we've got it with a patient journey, and really any journey online, you've got different stages of awareness. You start with, or different stages of the buying journey or the customer journey. And if you're in healthcare, it's the patient journey. It would be, it starts with awareness, right? All Tigger knows is he's afraid of heights. He doesn't know what that means. He doesn't know if that's a thing. He just knows he's got a fear of heights or phobia heights. It said right there, fear of heights symptoms. Those are the things that Tigger's going to start looking for. Then when Tigger gets to the point where he realizes this is a thing, somewhere along the line, he's going to read this phrase on a website. It's going to shift his search because he's becoming more aware of what's going on. He's getting more information. He's becoming more educated. So now he might start searching for acrophobia, and that is his new search term, right? And once he gets to his decision, now he might start to think about, well, okay, so I know kind of maybe what I have. I figured out what the technical term is for this, or the scientific term. Now I need to find somebody who can help me. And so maybe it is therapist. He may not know that he needs a psychiatrist or a psychologist. He may think he needs a specialist. But now we start to get to, different phrases. Maybe I pulled the wrong one for fear of heights because I'm seeing a bunch of social anxiety. But you see that there's a transition, right, of what people start with their search, and as they go through, that journey online. And it's the same thing, with the persona. So it gets very complex. And the reason I'm making you think in this complex manner is because I want you to see that when I tell you and I preach about building a seed list, I don't want you to just throw out 20 keyword phrases and go, okay, I'm good. I want you to really think, and I want you to really dig deep, because when you start to look at the different personas coming to your website or blog, and you start to think through things as that journey, you start to realize that there is endless a number of search terms that they will use to find you and your content. Okay, so I have a slide for this because I want to make sure that we reinforce this and we hit this home. The customer journey, it can be 3 segments, it can be 5 or 6, depending on how you're looking at it. When I do training like this, I like it to keep it at 3 because that's the most simplistic view of it. That first is that awareness. It's Pooh realizing he has an issue with excessive eating, doesn't know yet what it is or what it means to him, but he's realized that maybe he's a little overweight and he's got an issue. Consideration means Pooh started to search for causes and symptoms and possible treatments options for compulsive eating. He now knows that excessive eating is really kind of more called compulsive eating, and that's really more of what his issue is. He could have gone to his family doctor, and his family doctor could have given that term, or he could have found a good blog post somewhere that kind of alerted him to the searches that he needs. Okay, next, when Pooh starts to get to that decision, now he would look for therapists or psychiatrists who specialize in compulsive eating. Maybe he wants to set up a consultation, or maybe he wants to see if his insurance will cover this professional. But again, Pooh is migrating himself through a patient journey, and it applies to a customer of buying something or a patient seeking assistance with health medical issues. All right, another thing I want you to consider is search intent. I've talked about this on prior webinars. You have navigational searches, you have informational, commercial, and transactional, right? These are different, and they are going to really be modified with keyword phrases. And Google looks at these Google talks about these 4 different types of search. And it wants us as marketers and website developers and bloggers to understand these so that we're thinking about that user search intent and we're applying it to what we do. Navigational searches are people that are just surfing the web. They want direct searches into like a brand or a company, a website, or a person. Informational, it's the largest category. It's what most of us do online, where we want quick answers to recipes, sports scores, local weather. And again, we want to cure our own ailments at home and find all of the things, all those things that can cure us and what we struggle with. Commercial, those are investigational searches that lead up to a purchase that will help someone find information that will allow them to make a transaction, which is the final one, whether it be signing up for a service, subscribing to a newsletter, or actually purchasing something online. But again, as we go through and look at those different types of search intent, there is going to be words and phrases associated with those, and they don't all apply to the same way to a specific topic. All right, so let's bring it all together. This is our customer journey, or in this case, our patient journey: awareness, consideration, and decision, right? Awareness is Pooh realizes he has an issue with excessive eating, doesn't know what it means. So here's the more generic phrases he would look at, because this is like, the things that he knows innately within himself that would be good search terms. Now he starts to get educated and he starts to look for causes and symptoms and possible treatments for compulsive eating because he's educated himself. So now he has a clear shift in the phrases he is going to use for this investigation process. And then as he gets to the decision where he's confident that he kind of thinks he's found the right issue with himself and he really needs some help, some serious help, he's going to start looking for different things: support groups, therapy, dietitians, counseling, therapist, psychiatrist, specialist, right? Treatment centers. Notice all of those different variations for someone who can simply help with compulsive eating. And a lot of the default is no, we're a treatment center. We don't need to look anything farther than that. No, that's not the case. It's not the case. Not everybody looks for that, right? People don't, there's a whole bunch of people that would never search for the word treatment or the phrase treatment center. They would look for therapist or, support group or something like that. And that's why really thinking through who you serve, what kind of buckets they fall into, what makes them unique, and that will help you decide of these kind of search phrases, which ones would be best for them and at different stages of the journey. When you win on search is when and really in inbound marketing in general, is when you're targeting all three of these, right? Back in the day when I taught myself SEO, we were focused on not just decision and consideration, we focused on awareness. And at that time, we were like one of the first people in the industry that were doing it. We were the small little company in Toledo, Ohio, not realizing that we were being a little bit of trendsetters, right? We just thought, I don't know who in our organization thought through the need, and we created a lot of content dedicated to that awareness and consideration phase of the customer journey. And guess what happened? People reached out to us early before they talked to any competitors. We had opportunities to have dialogue with them. We became their authority for that subject matter, and they built trust with us, right? They trusted us as an authority within the industry, and that made the entire sales process easy and much easier and much faster than it would have been otherwise. And that shows you just a little bit of the importance of really walking through all of this and making sure you're hitting all of these potential areas. And keep in mind, you're not going to do all of this in 5 minutes. This is going to be something that you work on over time, and it's going to take days to weeks to be able to do. And then you're going to have an editorial plan of content that you're going to want to create. Because again, you won't create content for all of this at once. But again, it's strategy. It's giving you a plan, and you're having a very strategic plan that is based on investigation, data, right? And really just some good old fashioned knowing who you market to and how you can help them. All right, so what if we have all these keywords? Well, what do we do with them? Well, in a wonderful and utopian environment, we are going to have a psychologist or psychiatrist who can help us with these issues. This comes into play with Christopher Robin. He's the only human in the 100-acre woods that I know of. So we're going to make him our beloved psychiatrist. So what if he's got an office and his office needs a website? Well, most psychiatrists, unfortunately, don't have websites. But if they did, this could be a potential breakdown for them. It's not the end-all breakdown, but it's a potential breakdown, right? They've got the homepage. They're going to come in and talk about, so it's the therapist, or there's multiple psychiatrists in the office, so that, they might have child pages. You're going to have a page for disorders that you treat, and it's going to flow into ADHD, anxiety, depression. We might even, underneath each one of those, or on that same page, go into causes, symptoms, and treatments. Now, in years past, we would have done mapping for this and made sure that causes, symptoms, and treatments are all individual URLs. So we could target all of those individual phrases separately, because that's what we had to do with search. In today's world, we can do that, but we don't have to do that. Anxiety and all of these guys can all be part of one page. But the important kicker is anxiety and some phrase related to anxiety is your H1. Causes of anxiety is an H2. Symptoms of anxiety or anxiety symptoms is an H2, and anxiety treatment is another H2. And each one of those have content underneath them. And those H2s, which is that HTML5 semantic header structure, help the search engines understand this page, and knowing that all 4 of these guys are actual keyword phrases and they all have valuable content to deliver in search. But again, if you want to have those individual pages, you can. Otherwise, you can use H2s and break them out in the page. That helps search engines understand the nature of your content, and it helps humans find exactly what they're looking for and self-service themselves quickly. But again, so you see disorders and all in the hierarchy of that. Now you come over here and you see treatment options. What kind of treatment options do we have? Because some people will search for different things. Could be art therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy or equine therapy. That is actually a thing. Interpersonal psychotherapy. Just again, children pages of this parent. And what are we doing here? If you've ever been on webinars with me on architecture, we're creating content silos. Different colors are different content silos. And then, of course, we have contact, and contact can lead up to FAQs and things like that. But it shows you how we have migrated from documenting our personas, thinking through what their needs are, what they struggle with, matching that up to what we do to help them, and building that up with keyword lists so we can really know what people search for, and then taking all of that information and bringing it together in a really nice cohesive sitemap. All right, so that is the plan, and hopefully I did not overwhelm anybody and you enjoyed Winnie the Pooh and all of his friends, and I hope you didn't relate with a lot of them, but you may have. So what questions can I answer for the group besides what a woozle is or backle or whatever it was that it was called?
Great information today, Rebecca.
It was a Baxon, that's right.
The Baxon, yeah. It's a really weird, large, fat creature, it appears. But
okay, well,
Google is your friend. It'll pull it right up. So it's a really good approach to just the whole a whole strategy for SEO. Not only looking at keywords, but even the sitemap. Good information. Have a couple of questions that have popped in, but if you have not yet asked your question, please do so over at ithemes.com/chat. This is your chance to get a question answered by one of the leading WordPress search engine optimization specialists around. So ask your question there, ithemes.com/chat. Rebecca, the first question I'd like to know is, how do you recommend that a person goes through the process of discovering the pain points and purchase obstacles, those sorts of things, for a given persona?
That's a great question. So it's going to depend on your industry and your niche, right? And what you target. So like if you're in a B2B environment, or if you work with B2B clients, they're going to have emails. They're going to have inquiries that come in from their website. They're going to have notes in a CRM system from phone calls that their sales reps have taken, or maybe the receptionist took in, right? All of those great sources of information, because when those people do an initial reach out to somebody, they typically start to talk about their pain points right away. I have a client who is a plastic surgeon, wonderful gentleman, produces really good work, fixes other people's bad surgeries that they do. And he had a database within his website of inquiry forms, and it had an open field. And people put a lot in there. So what I could do when we were doing keyword research is I exported that Excel file and I scanned through all of those open fields to see what people were saying and what words they were using. Now, granted, his website did influence their word choice because he had specific things, but I still documented every instance to really look at that. And then, so let's say you're in a pharmaceutical environment, right? You've got a client who has a pharmaceutical product, which you don't even understand, or maybe it's a healthcare product, which is something that I came into recently. What did I do to see possible keyword phrases? I went to their website, to the abstracts that they have for the industry, and I opened that up and I started to look for just any phrases I could. And guess what? I found keyword phrases. I didn't really know what any of it meant, but it gave me a starting point that I could build up a seed list, and then I could use that seed list to put it in KWFinder, and KWFinder, which pulls from Google, knew exactly what I was talking about, and it was bringing me back other possible options for me to explore. If you're in a B2B, or excuse me, a B2C environment, and you've got like an online store and things like that, it's going to be more challenging for you. So you could look at Facebook groups to see what people are talking about. You could look at your own inquiries. You could look at competitor sites. You could go out to social media like Instagram and see what the influencers are talking about. So, just different ways to kind of explore and data mine what's available to you. Or like another tool would be Ask the Public. I think it's Ask the Public. So that's a good tool for putting in one word, and it will just throw back a bunch of questions that people ask on the web.
Absolutely. And actually, that was a question that Claudia just dropped into the chat. Do you use, and she's calling it Answer the Public, to create
Answer the Public.
lists?
Yes, that's what it is. Sorry.
Interesting.
That would be it. So yes, Claudia, I do. I like that. I don't rely on it, but I do think it's good to give me some ideas when I'm kind of stuck.
Awesome. And that is answerthepublic.com. I just dropped the link there in the chat. This is a great question from Ben. Ben is apparently building a website for his spouse, and that's always dangerous. He says, my wife wants to sell to everybody. Can you have a lot of different personas on the same site? Would you use different landing pages? What do you think about that?
So your wife can sell to everybody and without problems. So she could, and if it's a store, like an online store, categories can be keyword phrases, and those can relate to personas or tags maybe that you're using, right? So like extra wide shoes, that could be a tag, or it could be a category, different depending on how you've set up the store, but that is clearly tied to one of those examples that I gave you. Or trendy shoes for 2018. Again, could be a tag or a category that will help collect in all of those products and will directly tie to a persona. So Ben, I think it's your problem is trying to talk to your wife about this, get her to articulate who does she really sell to, who are they, and what makes them up and makes them unique. And in your case, you're not going to have 5 personas. You might have 50 personas, and that's okay, but get her to document it.
Interesting. This is our last question in queue, so if you've not yet asked your question, please do so there at ithemes.com/chat. It's a good question from Lorraine. She'd like to know, do you review personas to keep them current, and if so, how often?
That's going to depend on the niche and the industry and who you sell to. So like if you got a shoe website, you're going to want to do that often, right? Like maybe every 6 months, because fashion changes. You've got fashion trends and fads, and that is going to influence what people search for. If you're selling ERP software and it's really kind of like a boring subject, and the high level subjects don't change very often, then you don't have to do it as often as you would like the shoe store. It's really going to vary. But now let's look at, say you're a recipe site and you've got a blog. right? So we've got different food trends that come in. Keto is a current trend. Coconut oil was a trend or a fad. I don't know if you call them trends or fads, probably fads. But those were things that kind of came in and that everybody was talking about, and so those can definitely influence. Because someone who's very focused on the keto diet, that would be a persona. And it could be that they're focused on that diet because they have health issues or because they want to lose weight. And then you could maybe have multiple levels of personas.
Awesome. Here's one from Roy. Is there a tool that I could use that would more easily mine key phrases from reviews, testimonials, surveys, that sort of thing?
Not that I know of, Roy, but if anybody else has them available, man, I'd love to hear it.
Absolutely.
There was one tool that was free too, and somebody scooped it up and bought it and then made it a purchase tool, and it was like $100 a month or something.
Wow.
And it was really, I literally just put it into like my SEO course as here's a great place for information, free and blah, blah, blah. And then it got purchased and locked down, and I pulled it right back out because I knew nobody was going to pay for it, and they would just get frustrated with me.
Oh, wow. All right, well, I think we've reached the end of our questions. As we're wrapping up today, I would like to direct your attention over to the sidebar beside the chat room. There's a special deal going on for the SEO Summit from earlier this year. This was a 12-hour course that Rebecca presented over the course of about 4 days, I believe. And originally that was a $247 value. You can get access now to the recordings for a sale price of $99. So if you've appreciated this information, the SEO Summit was, wow, it was a fire hose. Rebecca, what would you say about the SEO Summit? What would people pick up in that?
It takes you through a process from start to finish, so it's not just like we're looking at one part of the SEO process, which is many, many steps. And that kind of is taking you from start to finish and walking you through it. And some people really, really need that whole process outlined for them. And Nathan, is that part of the toolkit or?
That is part of the iThemes Toolkit. So if you're a Toolkit member, it is in the members only side of the training website. But if you missed it and you'd like to get access to the replays, you can download all those videos. There's a workshop chat log with lots of good resources, 133-page slide deck, SEO templates, all sorts of other resources, and it's a $99 price tag for a limited time.
And Roy's asking if that includes content about the personas and the customer journey. I think it has. I would have talked definitely about personas at some point in it, and I'm pretty sure that I have templates in there that that mimic the slides from today with the matrix, because I think the summit and my SEO bootcamp is where I originally had those matrices, and I pulled them out to put on these slides. So I am pretty sure that they were there, although I cannot say for sure.
All right, so I just dropped a link into the chat room that has the page that talks all about the SEO Summit and what it includes, so you can have a look there. It is, wow, that's a huge value for $99. All right, let's see. Yeah, a lot of folks are saying how great the Summit was. Appreciate that. It was a really, really good week of training. Rebecca, any last notes as we're wrapping up today?
No, this is the first time, and I don't think like ever that we don't run past the time with questions. So I hope this means that everybody, the slides made sense to everybody, and you all had good information to take away, and you can implement it with your activity moving forward, because it really does help. And so definitely encourage everyone to do so.
Absolutely. And so we dropped in the chat room just a little bit earlier. Scroll up just a bit and you'll see the link to Rebecca's Facebook group. If you are interested in SEO, join that free SEO Launchpad Facebook group. It's a really, really active group. A lot of folks are chiming in on questions, and it's just a good group to be part of if you're doing anything with SEO. Rebecca also has DIY SEO courses. That link is there, and then we have the link from today's slides also. Rebecca, hey, thanks again for being with us today. This was great information as usual. And thank all of you for being with us as well here on iThemes Training, where we go further together.